Hello, music lovers. My name is Carter. Welcome back to Recording Records. Today, we're reviewing Hit Me Hard and Soft, third studio album by Billie Eilish. My sister actually bought me the CD at Target, uh, sort of surprisingly in a manner. She FaceTimed me and was like, "Do you want this?" And I was like, "Sure." I didn't really want to pay for it, but she just bought it for me. Thank you to her. Shout out to my sister. And it came with this cool poster back here. It's a photo of a Billie Eilish drowning, which is not very cool, but it sort of plays into the theme of the album, which we'll talk about soon. And the cover has her drowning after falling through a door. It's very cool. Um, but Hit Me Hard and Soft is, as I said, the third studio album by Billie Eilish, written by her and her brother Phineas, who also produced the album. The album features synths and basses, creating this very alternative pop feel. The album's instrumentation oftentimes reminisces of a aquatic feel that is akin to the cover of the album as I showed you. Her website describes this album as follows. Hit Me Hard and Soft does exactly as the title suggests. Hits you hard and soft, both lyrically and sonically, while bending genres and defying trends along the way. And this theme and instrumentation plays out throughout the track. In the opening track, Skinny, the protagonist falls in love for the first time. They regard their lack of satisfaction with how public perception of people coincides with their weight and their physical appearance. To the protagonist, they're the same no matter how they look. They're still the same person. They're fat. They're still the same person. If they're skinny, they're still the same person. And the way that they are perceived makes them cry and emotional. This coincides with the singing in this track, which is very breathy, which, makes this emotional, sort of like I'm singing to you type of vibe. And there's a very atmospheric feel to the intro, which just brings the listener into the story. It drags you into it. The production feels very deep, almost aquatic in a sense, especially in the outro where orchestration plays throughout it, and it creates, this sort of like under the sea type of feel. And this deep production compels this idea of depth and sort of this, infinite idea or infinite space, you could say. The second track, Lunch, hits the soft side of the album, as described in the description. The song is fun, and it's a vibe. The matter she refers to, it's not that emotionally impactful, so it's a bit poppy. I'm not going to get into the theme of that song for reasons of being family friendly, but it's just talking about her, you know. In the third track, I believe it's pronounced Chihiro, Billie makes allusions to the movie Spirited Away, which is a movie about not forgetting who you are. In this track, she's asking someone to open themselves up to her, sort of like opening a door, kind of like how in the cover here, a door is being opened up to her. She's asking you to open up. And this coincides with a very upbeat and freeing sound. In the fourth track, Birds of a Feather, Billie describes wanting someone to stay with her until death. Her singing is a lot more personal than that of the earlier works, hinting at something that's later to come. Still though, this track is poppy and fun, with drums that make you want to dance. This more personal vibe that was hinted at with Birds of a Feather in the previous track begins really in the fifth track, Wildflower. The intro is acoustic, it makes it feel like it's not a produced song, but a song sung to you. She's playing in front of you and she's singing to you. This coincides with breathy vocals that include many heavy breaths, again, making it feel like it's sung at you. This is a track about Billie befriending a girl. And after she breaks up with someone, or someone breaks up with her, this person that breaks up with her, Billie is at the same time dating. The song documents her discomfort in the relationship, which is caused by this fact, because Billie feels that her partner treated her ex or dumped up with her and broke her heart in a bad way. And this lack of empathy that she thinks that her partner is showing is causing issues within the relationship. And she refers to this character as you, making it personal, rather than saying my boyfriend, my girlfriend. It says you, which again makes it personal. It's like she's singing at you, which coincides with the instrumentation and how she's singing. She also infers that her partner must not also be over her ex, causing her partner's care towards Billy to not be properly received. These two themes are separated by verses and choruses. The first verse and chorus is about her partner's ex, whereas the second verse leans into Billy's turmoil relationship. Drums are withheld up until that second verse to make the transition more apparent and make a more dynamic change in vibe and emotion to coincide with a change in subject. Overall, it creates this, emotional journey, and it feels like you are going through that same journey that Billy is describing in the song. In the sixth track, The Greatest, it opens up with the most personal and intimate singing so far. It coincides with an acoustic sound, which I believe to either be a banjo or some form of guitar that sounds like a banjo, giving this, very aquatic sound. Phineas doesn't remove her constant breaths, which make the sound more personal and unprofessional in a good way. And the way that she constantly breathes sort of reminisces of the way that people breathe when they heavy breathe whenever they're crying. In this track, she refers to pouring out a lot of love and patience for someone who is seemingly only interested in physical pleasure. This coincides with her singing throughout the track. In the second verse, for example, at the end, her voice gives in a similar way to like your voice gives out and gives in whenever you're crying. Creating this crying tone, which coincides with the breathing, and it gives so much raw emotion to the song. The instrumentation also plays along with the dynamic change of the song, which only gradually becomes more sad and more expressive. For example, in the right before the bridge, there are syncopated drums that create this anticipation for what is soon to come. What comes in the bridge is her belting for the first time in the song, and I believe the first time in the album. And belting, it's powerful, very open, and it makes this big point of emotion, which is very important for the song. Because during this belting, she cries out all of her woes of wanting love back from her partner, and it's this huge moment, because she talks about all the turmoil that she has to do in order to love this guy. And this belting is so important because it plays into this big part of the song where Billy speaks towards the turmoil she has to receive in order to love this person and makes this, huge, emotional, impactful moment. Following this, in the final chorus, she reverts back to the intimate, personal style, breathy tone, but it has a bit of a painful, I would say, tone to it. She sounds like she's hurting when she's singing it, and it makes it sound like she's reminiscing over the situation and crying over it. And this coincides with what she says in the chorus, which the chorus changes from the prior from the prior context to now reflecting on the faults of her partner rather than reflecting on the situation itself. It's reflecting on his fault on their faults. And this creates an evolution in emotion throughout the song. First she's crying, then she's crying more, and now she's reminiscing and regretting and hurting. In the seventh track, L'amour de ma vie, I believe I'm pronouncing that right, Billy sings about someone that she lyingly told was the love of her life, which is what the title means in French, only to soon break up with that person. While doing so, she sings with a tone that is sort of careless in a sense. Her voice is a lot more professionally produced and edited, making it less personal and intimate. This stands in contrast from the personal nature of her singing in the prior tracks. Her, or the protagonist of the story, has a similar position to the character in Wildflower, the protagonist's partner in Wildflower, who, to Billy's dismay, brutally dumped their ex. In this track, she lies to someone, telling them, that she loves them when she doesn't, and she reminisces over such while singing without much care to them. She knows that breaking up with this person will hurt them, but she also knows that she has to do it because being with that person hurts her. Differently, though, to the partner in Wildflower, she tries to be there for her eventual ex. This, however, just ends up hurting her more. This causes Billy to say that asking for an apology isn't too much to ask from her. To her, her partner is making it impossible for her to leave. Further introspection could posit someone to wonder if the partner in Wildflower really was at fault. Maybe the partner in Wildflower was just trying to avoid the same pain that Billy is, or the protagonist is enduring by trying to be nice or caring for their partner. This conducts Billy's point of the song, though, which is that relationships posit many of these issues, not the people within them, but also often just the relationship, the human dynamic. It isn't their partner's fault in the song that they make Billy hurt, and it's not Billy's fault that they have to leave in order to not hurt. It's not Billy's fault that Billy needs to break up with their partner. Later in the song, Billy, or the protagonist, then encourages their ex to continue on with this new partner or new whatever that they found. That way, they are both freed from the pain of the breakup. This song speaks to the lies and manipulation that can be caused by the brutality of relationships, at least according to Billy's interpretation of how those tend to work and maybe her experiences or the experience of someone that maybe she's trying to connect with who might be listening. This song also has a second part with a much more EDM style where she celebrates the fact that she's free from a relationship and it's over. Her voice is heavily vocoded or has a similar vocal editing to something of vocoding where it's like freeing her from a prior situation. She feels free. It could possibly be interpreted that the reason this was done, or her reason her voice was vocoded, was that she's trying to conceal or hide her joy from the situation, or at least keep it private to herself. In the 8th track, The Diner, Billy takes the perspective of one of her many stalkers. This stalker is seemingly in love with Billy and believes that Billy needs this person. The first chorus escalates the situation that was, at the beginning of the song, it's just like, well, there's a stalker, I love you, you need me. But the first chorus escalates it where the stalker claims to have entered Billy's house. And at that point, that's obviously way beyond the boundary of just thinking that someone needs you and stalking them, which is already terrible, but it's gone to a point of, physical invading someone's privacy, which is obviously terrible. After this terrible proclamation comes a heavy bass, it's sort of boomy, it's dark, it sounds villainy almost. And this coincides with the second verse where the stalker seems more jaded. They claim that they failed and were sent to jail. And this usage makes them sound like a villain. It kind of sounds like a villain's theme from like a cartoon. This jade carries on to the pre-chorus though, where the stalker threatens Billy by saying that they'll write another letter and she better read it, whatever that means. The second chorus documents the stalker being tripped and stopped by the cops. And again, following this chorus, the big boomy villainy bass, which disappeared for a while, comes back. And this plays in the third verse where the stalker gets more jaded. The stalker says that, even goes so far to say that they saw Billy with someone and now proceeds to like threaten that person, says if that person disappears or something to that effect, that you better know it was them that caused that. In the 9th track, Bittersweet, the song opens with a very EDM style synth, which creates this very dreamlike feel, sort of capturing you within this idea that you're reminiscing over something. It's very dreamlike. And this pairs well with the subject matter of the verses. In these verses, she describes her deep desire to enter a relationship while knowing that she can't because it'll come back and hurt her and harm her. So she's dreaming of something, desiring something, and this is further helped by the instrumentation creating this, dreamlike feel. The song has a second part, though, where she embraces her loving emotion. The part is focused on her embracing desire, and it coincides with a sound that has a very, beachy or resort feel. The beach is a resort, of course, as being like a place of heavy desire and pleasure, which coincides with her singing about, her pleasure in fulfilling her desires. In the 10th track, Blue, Billy described how she is blue because she isn't over her ex in the first half of this. And because there's two parts. In the first half of the song, she describes how she isn't over her ex. Blue, of course, is synonymous with the emotion of sadness, but it's also synonymous with water or the ocean. The second half of the song is a lot more personal and intimate. In this half, she refers to her ex as cold. She describes this as derivative of a bad home life from her ex, deeming her ex unchangeable It's not really their fault, but they're unchangeable, which warrants Billie leaving. In the bridge, though, to this song, her vocals are choppy. They're chopped up with a heavy bass, creating an EDM dance type of style. And these lyrics consist of her saying, "Well, I'm also just as bad as my ex. I have all these issues as well, but it's hard to understand, and perhaps this vocal style can infer that she wants to conceal her issues in maybe a sense, or perhaps a sense, because she sings about with so much openness. It's so intelligible when she sings about her ex, but when she sings about her and her issues, it has this very EDM style. It's hard to make out. And this track frequently references different tracks throughout the album from prior, making it really a great closer and conclusion to the album. And in conclusion, for the theme of this album, the album speaks to the woes of relationships, whether it be manipulation, whether it be the issues with breaking up with someone that maybe you're not compatible with or things don't work out with, or dealing with the issues that someone's past history could bring, or just incompatibility or any issues that relationships might bring. The album speaks to that, while also speaking to, perhaps the desire and happiness and pleasure that relationships can bring. And there's so much depth to it. you know, Billie wants someone to open up to her, but when someone does open up to her, she kind of feels like she's drowning. As far as flow for the album, all the tracks on the album, they work together really well. There's great transitions between them, and despite them having different styles, they all fit together. They feel like they belong in the same album. And as far as composition, that makes the overall body and composition fit really well. The album feels both distinct enough to where there's different ideas being expressed, different styles, and it doesn't feel like the same song, while again also feeling like it's not just a compilation of songs, but an album, a thing with a clear direction, style, and purpose. As far as track compositions, there's a couple things or instances where I, as a listener, don't like the directions that things might have been taken, but from an artist perspective, I can actually understand and know, this was actually a very smart move for conducting a certain idea, even if it wasn't maybe what my appetite was for in listening. As far as overall thoughts of the album, this album's on the shorter side of an acceptable length for an album, which I would say the acceptable length is somewhere between 40 minutes to an hour and 10 minutes, and the little sweet spot is like 50 minutes to an hour. This album's about like almost 44 minutes with 10 tracks, really 13 tracks because there's three tracks with part twos, making it really like 13 distinct, or part twos or two distinct halves, making it really 13 tracks, but it's listed as 10, and it's, copied down on CDs and put it on Spotify, and, it's made as 10 songs. However, I don't think that's much of an issue because the length plays well into the personability of the album. Like, for example, if she strived to put more tracks on the album and get more quantity, it could have gone away with the clear direction of the album, the clear thematic direction, the clear stylistic direction, the clear flow of the album, and it could have actually made things worse. Giving into the woes of, when can I hear the next one? Which was something that was the last words in the last song on Blue. The last thing you hear in the album in the last seconds are some person saying, it's a Billie impersonating a fan saying, when can I hear the next one? And if she gave into those woes, that could have actually done detriment to the album. And so, in many ways, the length is actually a plus. Overall, I think this album is it's really complete. Great substance and great creative thinking. This album is I know this is a high margin compared to what I usually do, but somewhere between an 8.75 and a 9.5. I'm going to give it a 9 because it's early on, and I want to see how it grows over time, whether these tracks age really well or don't age so well. So I don't want to go so quick and as to make it higher. However, a 9 out of 10 is obviously a fantastic rating for an album. Uh, and so, yeah, I'm going to give it a 9. This is my personal pick so far throughout the year of all the albums I've listened to made this year. This is, in my opinion, the album of the year. I still wouldn't be surprised if Tortured Poets Department, which was my previous review, or I don't know if I'm going to upload another one prior to this. One of my first review, one of my previous reviews, I wouldn't be surprised if that takes the reward since it was so monumental. It was like the most streamed album upon release, the most pre-saved album, and so Obviously, I wouldn't be surprised if that wins, and it's also a great album as well, so I wouldn't be surprised if that wins the award. But I think this album clearly warrants winning an award for Album of the Year so far. This is an amazing album. And speaking of the Tortured Post Department, if you haven't watched that video yet, go check it out. And while you're here, consider subscribing. It helps me out a ton. I'm looking towards upping the quality of these videos, getting better videos, and obviously working harder to actually, have better memorization for what I want to say so I can listen to jump cuts and really get this more, a better flow for what I'm saying. And subscribing really helps, not just in motivation, but, it helps my content get out there to more people too. And so subscribing does a lot. So if you want to subscribe, please consider it. But either way, goodbye, have a good day, and God bless.